Get those solar panels installed at your home or residence by going to onesolarsolution.com. Bringing you the world news coming up next. This is Radio Caravan, the world news, read by Shabnam Modgil. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced today that Russia has become the first country to approve a coronavirus vaccine, claiming victory in a global race to conquer COVID-19. The vaccine was developed by Moscow's Gamaleya Institute, and President Putin said one of his two daughters is among the Russians already inoculated with the vaccine, joining a small group that includes the researchers who developed it and about 50 members of Russia's military. Russia has named its first approved COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik 5 for foreign markets, a reference to the world's first satellite and what Moscow sees as its success at becoming the first country to approve a vaccine. The World Health Organization and Russian health authorities are discussing the process for possible World Health Organization pre-qualification for its newly approved COVID-19 vaccine. The confirmed number of coronavirus cases in the world has reached 20 million. That's according to the tally kept by Johns Hopkins University. And New Zealand reported its first local cases of the coronavirus in more than 100 days and puts its largest city, Auckland, into lockdown today to prevent another outbreak. Authorities have detected 4 cases of COVID-19 today in one household from an unknown source, and contact tracing is now underway, according to Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. And this news comes after New Zealand yesterday recorded 102 days of no community transmission of COVID-19. President Trump wants to temporarily bar U.S. citizens and permanent residents from entering the country if they are suspected of having the coronavirus. And the United States has crossed a staggering 5 million COVID-19 cases. We do have President Trump abruptly escorted by a U.S. Secret Service agent out of the White House briefing room as he was beginning a coronavirus briefing yesterday afternoon. He returned 9 minutes later saying there had been a shooting outside the White House that was under control. A uniformed Secret Service officer shot and wounded a man during this confrontation near the White House that led the president to being abruptly escorted out of the briefing room during this televised news conference yesterday. President Trump denied a report that he had a White House aide find out what the process was to add his face to Mount Rushmore, but says his addition would be a good idea. According to a report from the New York Times, the 45th president wanted to know more about how he could fulfill his dream to join the 1st, 3rd, 16th and 26th presidents on the colossal granite sculpture in South Dakota. President Trump also wants the college football to be played this fall. And President Trump suggested hosting the Group of 7 summit after the November presidential election, saying he would invite countries generally excluded from the global get-togethers. He has narrowed his options for the site of his presidential nomination acceptance speech, which would normally be given at the site of the Republican convention, but is being relocated because of the coronavirus pandemic. The two finalists are the White House and the Gettysburg battlefield. Both locations, though, could cause legal issues as they are federal property and not meant to be used for political campaigning. And this week, Joe Biden will announce his running mate. Senator Kamala Harris of California and Susan Rice, former National Security Advisor to President Obama, have emerged as the top contenders, and either one would make history as the first black woman to be a running mate. A rare storm packing 100 miles per hour winds and with power similar to an inland hurricane swept across the Midwest, blowing over trees, flipping vehicles, causing widespread property damage and leaving hundreds of thousands without power as it moved through Chicago and into Indiana and Michigan. A U.S. appeals court will consider today whether a federal judge is obligated to honor the Trump administration's request to drop the criminal case against President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. Ghislaine Maxwell is mounting a new legal bid to be moved out of solitary confinement, arguing that she is and has been in a uniquely onerous condition in a notorious New York jail. 1 year after Jeffrey Epstein's suicide inside New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center, there have been no answers from the Federal Bureau of Prisons on what happened on the 10th of August last year after a promised investigation and a call for more transparency. Record numbers of Americans are renouncing their citizenship, according to numbers reported by a New York accountancy firm. And the U.S. military has said this morning it was investigating a claim by a newly formed Iraqi Shiite militant group of a bombing at the Iraq-Kuwait border. President Trump has promised a new nuclear deal with Iran within 4 weeks if he's re-elected in November, according to a video of his remarks from inside a New Jersey fundraiser. And Iran shut down a newspaper after it quoted a former member of the National Coronavirus Task Force as saying the country's tolls from the epidemic could be 20 times higher than official figures. Iran is watching developments in Lebanon closely, wary of losing any of its hard-won influence after a deadly mega-blast in Beirut sparked angry demands for reforms to its delicately balanced system. Lebanon's prime minister stepped down from his job yesterday in the wake of the catastrophic explosion in Beirut that has triggered public outrage, saying he has come to the conclusion that corruption in the country is bigger than the state. And a report by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs released today said that the World Food Programme would be sending 50,000 tons of wheat flour to Beirut to stabilize Lebanon's wheat supply. The head of the UN Food Agency said he's very, very concerned that Lebanon could run out of bread in about 2.5 weeks because 85% of the country's grain comes through Beirut's devastated port, but he believes an area of the port can be made operational this month. Egyptians started voting today for the Senate, the upper chamber of parliament that was revived as part of the constitutional amendment approved in a referendum last year. And the election comes as the country faces an uptick in coronavirus cases. Egypt reopened Gaza's main passenger crossing point for the first time in months for thousands of Palestinians who have been stranded on both sides of the border due to the coronavirus crisis. And Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani issued a decree to release the final batch of prisoners demanded by the insurgent Taliban as a condition to move to peace talks. At least 10 people have been killed in a shootout between jailed militant Islamists and security officers at a prison in Somalia. The Al-Shabaab militants had attempted to escape from the heavily guarded prison in the capital of Mogadishu. And 10 more people died in clashes between protesters and security forces in Ethiopia's southern region. The latest violence as myriad ethnic groups clamour for more autonomy. Tension remained high today between Greece and Turkey, both of which have warships in the eastern Mediterranean after Turkey sent a research vessel to carry out seismic research for energy resources in an area that Greece says is on its continental shelf. Germany has rolled out compulsory coronavirus testing for all arrivals from high-risk areas as infection rates continue to climb across the country. There have been more than 1,000 new infections reported for the past 3 days. And Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned that Britain would be weaker if the union that binds its 4 nations were broken. His latest rejection of a growing push for Scottish independence. Disagreements between Britain's constituent nations, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England, over the handling of the coronavirus pandemic have damaged relations already badly strained by Brexit. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. Student leaders in Thailand delivered an unprecedented challenge to the country's constitutional monarchy, strongly criticizing the king and demanding changes to lessen what they believe is its anti-democratic nature. And Bhutan ordered its first nationwide lockdown today after a returning resident tested positive for coronavirus after being discharged from quarantine and coming into close contact with people in the capital of Thimphu. The case took the total in the tiny Himalayan kingdom to 113, still the lowest in South Asia, and it has yet to record a fatality. Taiwan's opposition party demanded a clarification after a U.S. envoy is visiting appeared to mispronounce the name of the island's president for her arch-rival in China. And Texas Senator Ted Cruz is among 11 politicians and heads of organizations being sanctioned by China. And he and fellow Republican Marco Rubio were singled out by Beijing a month ago. Last year, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets of Hong Kong to demand full democracy, many egged on by a tabloid newspaper critical of China's ruling Communist Party. Today, they lined up at newsstands across the city to buy that same paper, handing over 10 Hong Kong dollars a copy to in a bid there to help the Apple daily, the press freedom. Macau, the world's biggest casino hub, is set to welcome an influx of gamblers after China today announced that tourist visas through which the majority of visitors enter the Chinese territory would be reinstated for all provinces from the 23rd of September. And maintaining peace along the disputed boundary and deepening strategic trust with India is one of China's diplomatic priorities, according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry in Beijing. And India's newly acquired 5 Rafale fighters practicing night flying in the mountainous terrain of Himachal Pradesh so that the Golden Arrow Squadron, with its Meteor beyond visual range air-to-air missile and air-to-ground standoff weapons, will be ready if the situation deteriorates along the actual line of control in the Ladakh sector. The Supreme Court in New Delhi held that daughters have co-parency rights on the property of their parents, even if the latter died before the Hindu Succession Act of 2005 came into force. COVID-19 cases in India dipped below 55,000 in a single day today. And Prime Minister Modi said that there is no need to increase coronavirus testing in states where the testing rate is low and positivity rate is high when he was speaking at a meeting with chief ministers. Peace and brotherhood remaining in the party, underscored Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot a day after Sachin Pilot sealed a truce deal with the party high command. India has decided to upgrade its diplomatic presence at the United Nations before taking over a non-permanent member of the Security Council in the coming January. And President-elect of the 75th session of the UN General Assembly stressed the importance of a peaceful resolution in Jammu and Kashmir and offered to mediate between India and Pakistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan urging the United Nations to play its role. And that's all I have in the news.